recording. There we are.
You.
So I'll just ramble on for a bit until.
Yes, I mean, remember, I'm naive about the whole development process. So what I don't understand is at what point you move on to more funding, when you move on to more development from the script, because obviously there's going to be a whole different set of issues if and when you get to the point of having actors and things.
Yeah.
So where's the natural breaking point, and where also does it move to another form of funding as opposed to the kind of lump sum to you for your creative work?
So I feel like we're nearing that stage now. So we're at third draft. Sometimes, rarely, that's enough drafts, and people are like, yes, you can go into production. And then what we're sort of nearing now is what is sort of development, but also late development. Right. And BBC Films, who haven't officially come on board this project, but backed our last film together, have been tracking it the whole time. So we have a question whether we take the next draft to them or we do some late development funding alongside the draft with our current financier, both of whom we hope would give us production funding further down the line. And late development can cover, like you say, those questions that come up as you start to realise a project in a different way. So whether that would be additional research or casting in a very specific way for Abigail, or do you know what I mean? Like, or working with an act, like bringing that actor on maybe earlier, and if we had to do additional workshops with that actor to come up with a methodology or approach like that. Also, it does a load of standard stuff that's across all films for late development, early prep, which is you get somebody to put a budget together for you, get someone to put a schedule together. So it's those things that you need to have in place in order to go and say, we can make this film for this amount in this much time. So we are starting to have those conversations, thinking about like who our casting director would be. And in this draft, I think, you know, Georgia has made some big changes to the situation that the family and Abigail are in domestically, which is what we really want to talk to you about. But we are also conscious that that does mean there are, regardless of getting it right for the story and the script, there will be practical implications in terms of the approach with the cast. So that's the rough sort of steps ahead, but each film has its own little uniquenesses and steps. But yes.
So, I mean, I think early on you asked if I wanted a kind of consultancy fee for this work, and I said, you know, not while it's just your project and under development. If it moves to the next stage, it would be nice if I could be officially a consultant, and even a nominal fee that could go to my university would be nice.
We'd love.
So I'll leave it up to you about knowing the point at which that's appropriate. Then, if that's something you'd like.
Yeah,
I'd like to see the project through if and when it goes to the next stage. And I'm aware that a lot of it there's a limit to what I can say on the script. There'll be something once it becomes visualized and enacted, and there'll be a whole other set of issues.
right.
You might also want a nurse or a therapist to have a look at it, because they might spot things I didn't. So some things I'm holding back on, thinking, oh God, how would you visualize that? Or, you know.
Do you mean like an OT, like an occupational?
Or just somebody who does hands-on. You know, I observe a lot of patients in this condition, but somebody does hands-on movement. So the filming I've done was really interesting in that point of we filmed an actor who was having to act a minimally conscious patient and getting them onto a tilt table. Now, I've never handled anyone onto a tilt table, so I realized there were different things about how you position and how that movement. Actually, a physio is quite good, because a physio will know that with spasticity, if you do that movement, that'll be the reaction movement sort of thing. So a physio is I'd say a physiotherapist, because they're very good on the physicality. And I was aware that I could go so far with the filming and working with the film crew, but somebody else needed to do those bits.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Probably find somebody who's good for you. Who they just need to be experienced. I'd say physio who's worked with conscious patients.
Okay.
I mean, the physicality is so distinctive, and given the physicality that runs through the script, and I know my main focus is accuracy, and your main, you know, you want it to be accurate, but of course you've got a drama and you've got a story to tell. But you know, there might be a point where you go tough. That might be inaccurate, but
I think. Well, I feel like also for me personally, from a writing point of view, I'm getting to a stage now where I'm sort of more happy with the sort of the story arc and structure of Ellie's journey. I want to get much more specific now. And
oh, Georgia, we've just
Abigail.
Georgia,
am I breaking up?
You might need to try turning off your video and
so
see.
annoying.
I might just turn mine off because then you're not having to stream me because you see me all the time.
I'm going to turn mine off. Let's all go incognito and see if it helps.
Okay.
We can see something. At least you have a pretty photograph of me with my lockdown hair.
I'll start.
Lockdown hair.
Let me just also check my internet is just behaving fast. It should be. If I keep talking, just stop me if it's breaking.
Oh, it's broken up again.
Yeah, we heard breaking, and we assumed the word was up, but
let me just check one thing because my husband, who works in this industry, is here, so I'm just going to ask him if there's anything going on with the internet. 1 second.
Come to the rescue.
No. Sometimes I've just transferred to WhatsApp on the phones, and it's worked fine as a joint WhatsApp call.
Yeah, I wonder if we do that as a backup. The only thing is you can't record that, I don't think. But I suppose there's no point recording if we can't hear Georgia. Axel, her husband, hopefully will.
Yes,
my turn it on again, so I'll probably have to reconnect to you guys.
Okay, we'll stay on the line.
All right.
I was just saying, I also live with an IT expert, and it's invaluable. How about you? Do you have your home IT expert?
I do not. I think we're both, it's me and my friend, I think we're both technologically challenged.
Your cohabitee poorly, then, is all I can say.
Yeah, we're scraping by. I know I need to get a new router at some point. But yeah, it's doing okay so far.
I thought you were going to say you need a new housemate at some point. Who's good on the internet.
Not that drastic. No. Be like, no, only if you that's the conditions for the next one, perhaps. Being able to help with IT.
Yes. I suspect that'll end up in more. I'm just going to try WhatsApping you and seeing if we can record. Hello. Right, well, now a lovely echo. Yes, you're right. I can't see any button. No. I suppose it would overload a phone as well. Oh, okay, so that won't work. I shall hang up on you. Yes. Bye. Well, is there anything it would be good to explain to me while we've lost our third party to help correct any naivety I have or lack of understanding? You know, some part.
I mean, it's hard to know because I think. So essentially, maybe I could just like run over who the partners, who the people involved are and might likely be. I don't know if that would help.
Yeah.
The picture. So me and Georgia work together, and I'm the producer. So like the script and the rights sort of responsibilities of that sit with me, and then BFI, who are a government organisation, British Film Institute. They distribute lottery money and they are probably one of the main financiers, particularly of first and second time features in the country. They backed our first film. And so they have developed the script. Now, we also originally took it to BBC at the same time, and they were keen to do it as well. And at that point, it seemed like it didn't necessarily matter which of the two we went with. It just seemed like the BFI would be quicker to get the paperwork off the ground. So the BBC film, which is the film arm of BBC, the executive producer, who's now the director of BBC Film, was the exec producer while she had just started at BBC many years ago on our first feature, and has been very encouraging, and has read possibly every draft you've read, maybe, and has given us notes. So she's been informally tracking it. So we don't want to say we're guaranteed, but we are relatively confident that if we took it to them either for the next draft or just for production funding, that there would at least be a positive conversation to be had.
Yes.
There. Likely we will need finance from somewhere else, which is then when it starts to get into like all the different layers of what's called like packaging a film. So depending on, say if we cast someone really well known for the father, for example, that might mean that you get a little bit more in your budget from a company, a sales agent, who are going to go and sell the film for you, because they might put some money in to the making of it so that you go with them and then they can sell it later on. But we're hoping that the base of our sort of backing and production support will be the British Film Institute and BBC Film. And I have worked for both of them as well, although there's been a lot of change in both organisations, particularly the BFI recently. So it's that strange thing where it's like it's quite a straightforward plan in one way, in terms of this is a very standard way for films of this level and sort of for second time directors to get their films made, but you also just never know. Like there've been a lot of changes of people at the BFI recently, but yeah, we're relatively confident. Hey Georgia, we saw you for a flash.
I'm back.
Should we try our videos and see how we go?
Yeah, I should be. Yeah, I should have much better internet now.
Right, you sound really clear.
God, this is good. Okay, where have you gone? Oh God, I haven't done a video in a long time. Should I try? Just keep talking?
Yeah,
okay.
Maybe if you sort of talk about the changes between the last draft and this draft.
Yeah, so the changes initiated from some general feedback that we got about trying to make Ellie's breaking point sort of feel more intense and bring more conflict into the beginning half of the film. And that felt like bringing Abigail back into the house was a way of doing that and sort of helped in lots of ways actually. So I tried it, and that's where we've got this draft with her back in the house, but obviously it brings in lots of other new things, changes to the house, carers, and has her more present in the beginning of the film, which I think is helpful, but it's obviously there's going to probably be more discrepancies now because she's there more in the beginning of the film. I like what it's doing, but I think now I'm aware that I've got a few story beats in there that I think are good, but I realise there's discrepancies, and I need to start getting a lot more specific about Abigail's, what actual level of cognition she has, because I've not really got into that, and I'm realising that probably is where there's quite a few things that don't make sense. And so, as I was saying before I cut off, I'm quite happy with the structure of the film and Ellie's journey. So now with this next draft, I really want to get into the nitty-gritty of it and make some decisions and get a bit more specific. So, and I'm not precious about it, or about and so yeah, I think I said that before, you know, you just tell us what's wrong, and like you've pointed out many things, and let's start really talking about those specific things that I haven't changed yet in some of the dialogue, in the way that Rod talks about her, and the way that because I've been working on other things, but now I feel like I'm in a good place to really concentrate on that. And actually Emma and I were talking about whether we need to start doing some more proper research, whether that's more in-depth conversations with you, or doing some workshops, or going to places to do research. I just sort of need to get out of a computer mind and writing, and actually start seeing things and understanding the world a bit more. So we could go through, is it best to go through your points first and sort of work through it that way?
Well, I think it might be worth stepping back from what you've just said then, and I understand the function of having Abigail in the home, because, you know, we're in the fortunate position we can give her whatever diagnosis we want, and in the moments where she can be anywhere along a continuum. So the question is, what kind of level of consciousness is going to work for the actor and the filming of this, and for the issue of representation? I suppose that's how I see it. And then for your drama. So shall I describe the kind of literally what a vegetative minimally conscious state is again, and how it can change over time?
Yeah.
Or do you want to start with kind of what you know, I suppose what she embodies in the film for me is somebody very loved, very changed, present but absent, physically problematic, not able to be a mother to a developing young woman, and a focus of attention around how people cope with that dramatic change. So that's how I'd summarize it. How would you summarize about her function in the?
Because just you saying that exactly, that's the way I've been thinking, in those slightly broader terms, in that she can't mother Ellie. But when we're getting down to it, can she communicate on some level? Can she blink, or can she move a finger, or can she, you know, because the level that we decide that she's at, because that changes what kind of relationship they have, I suppose. If Ellie feels like she can actually talk to her and get a response, and I haven't really got into that nitty-gritty, but then I suppose I've written a scene where at one point Abigail starts rubbing herself and Ellie tells her to stop, and she does. So that is them communicating to a level, because she does stop and they carry on a conversation. So I think I kind of need to go back a few steps, because I appreciate I'm not doing it.
Well, yeah. Okay. So, oh golly. Okay. So you can think of it in maybe three elements in this form of disability. So the one is consciousness.
Yeah.
The second is communication, and the third is capacity. So 3 C's.
Yeah.
And they're very different. So when someone is locked in, which is not Abigail, they can have capacity and consciousness, but no ability to communicate. So fully conscious in there, they can be cognitively completely sharp and with it and have an understanding, but they can't communicate. It's like a profound physical disability. The brain is there, and the brain stem's being cut off from the rest of the body. And if it's above the level of the eyes, they can't communicate. Whereas a lot of locked in people, they still have eye movements, so they can use a board. And that's how we know that you can be locked in. But if you're given the right technological support, you can write a book about your experience of being locked in. Right? Now, with minimally conscious vegetative patients, they have devastating brain damage. It's not that their brain is cut off from their bodies. And with something like diffuse axonal injury, which is probably one of the things she had alongside other forms of traumatic brain injury, the whole brain is shaken. It's all thrown up in the air. It's like jelly. It's knocked around inside the head. So it's very different from stroke, where you have a localized injury and then maybe the rest of the brain is pretty healthy and can find new routes around it, and brain plasticity heals it. So what the vegetative minimally conscious state is, usually it can either be anoxic, which is things like poisoning or oxygen deprivation, or it can be things like a car crash, being hit by a car or head-on car crash. And people, so the source of the injury and the fact it's not locked in and it's not like a stroke immediately puts it into this category that we're talking about for Abigail, which is a really confusing category. And people often kind of think it's related to lock-in or think it's related to a stroke or all these other things where they've kind of seen communication or healing. And the thing that's already gone and is never going to come back, weirdly enough, is that third element, capacity. So a capacity to make sense of the world, to make choices, to understand things has gone. Now you could have an element of consciousness coming back, and you could have an element of communication coming back. But, you know, I've never managed to stop a masturbating, severely brain injured person stop masturbating by telling them to stop. I've only ever managed it by distraction.
Right. Okay.
Because, well, why bloody hell should they really? You say stop.
No, exactly.
The people, it's socially inappropriate, much better, you know, put them something in their hand. So just your description there of, there is communication, because she made me laugh, because I thought, God, yes, there's so many.
That makes sense.
Granted.
But that makes perfect sense. To give her something to distract her will give us an understanding as an audience that there isn't, that she has to do something to change the action, not try and communicate to her verbally or no, verbally, but still not expect there to be the reaction she wants.
Yeah. So often a lot of talk to profoundly disabled people is a sort of, that's how we do relationships, that's how we do respect, that's how we do love. You don't want to just yank someone's hand and put a ball in it. Instead you go, now mum, you know. Social conventions isn't top anyway, even if she could understand, and that's always the ambiguity. The social convention is not going to be the top of her agenda, basically. And if you think that everything that's gone in severe brain injury like this is the links, and that's its tragedy. So for family members, what you have is somebody who sort of looks like who you knew, except, you know, the face may be lopsided, or a bit of their skull may be missing, or they may be, you know, somebody who loved makeup and color and cleanliness, may be drab and having to have stretchy clothing where they like really tailored clothing. So you're trying to work with their body to sometimes, and families struggle with it, you're trying to sorry, is this going to be useful? I'm probably just
so useful.
Keep going, so useful.
Okay, so I'm just going to kind of brainstorm from experience. So there's the body, and you're trying to do two things with the body. One is keep it clean, stop the bed sores, and keep it comfortable, because certainly at the minimally conscious level, we know pain is an issue. The second is you're trying to make it presentable, maybe taking it, I'll just say the body at the moment, out in public, and people recoil, the cough splatters the walls, you go into Costa with the wheelchair, and you know, people move tables, people try and be sympathetic, they try and be helpful. There's all that, how you present the body to the outside world and cope with other people's reactions. And then you're trying to have the body still represent the person who was. So you see families struggle with this. You know, she always liked her eyebrows plucked really finely, but now she doesn't understand why I'm plucking her eyebrows, and she recoils. And am I torturing her, or is it what she'd want?
Yeah.
You know, I put lipstick on, but before you know it, it's smeared halfway up her cheek like a clown. Is this just a mockery? So particularly, and I've seen this mostly applied to women in this state, the people around them are very used to how they wanted to be made up and be presented. And it's an almost impossible task. So you have some families say, don't take her out in public. She would not want to be seen like this. And in one case, there was a judge who said, no, she's got to be taken out in public. It's important for her current health and well-being. So we're going to override who she was. in other cases, judges have agreed that for that person, in fact, it was so strong and she would feel so humiliated by how she currently is, she'd be better off dead. You know, so that issue about makeup in particular, and I don't think I've talked to you this before, and makeup and hair plucking and what you do with the hair. I think I did tell you that my sister has and still has very, very long hair. And the every time I went in, the carers would have made her hair up into, you know, a different arrangement. They were all wishing to be hairdressers. So it'd be a bun or a French knot or, you know, plaits. And I had to struggle with that because Polly would have hated that. I could see her carers enjoyed it, and I could also see it meant they spent time with her, and also for them it was part of their presenting her to me. So everything around the body, nothing is straightforward. It's all layered, and it can all be a site of incredible drama and emotions. I had one person tell me recently, she went in and she showed me the photograph. It was World Be Happy Day, I think. And she'd gone in and she'd found her sister, who through dementia has sunk into a minimally conscious state, propped up in her wheelchair with her hair fancy, being posed for a photograph. Happy World Happy Day, I'm happy. And what really disturbed her was her nails. Her nails had been painted this lovely red. And she was a nail biter all her life and never wore nail varnish. And Sarah was just completely distraught and said it was like she'd become a puppet in somebody else's story about the care home and about happiness and about disability. And above all, it brought home she couldn't bite her nails anymore. She'd always wanted to stop biting her nails, but not this way. So she couldn't even lift her finger to bite her nails. Yeah. And so there was this huge drama about the simple fact of the nail varnish. So, yeah, I can see our free meeting will end in 10 minutes. I could start a Zoom after this and record the rest.
I hadn't realised that I was on the company that I'm working for at the moment, their account, and I hadn't realised. I think my status has been downgraded since we've left production.
Oh, that's mean.
I know.
Shall we agree that I should
to be fair, I hardly ever set up the things myself, but yeah, I think if we even just come back on this link, it should just let us rejoin. So maybe that's
I'll let you stay in charge. Good.
Yeah.
So that's
so many layers, like you say.
I think it's communication feels like a really big question for me and for this, and thinking about some of the things that are tripping me up. I think, is that what they would be being tripped up by? Is it the kind of, am I having the same reaction that I would if this was my own family member, because of trying to think, because I intervened and did this, or because I brushed their hair, that is a form of communication, like trying to find it anywhere you could, because that's the thing you would, I mean, beyond them not being in discomfort and in pain, and obviously the very physical side on a personal level for a daughter, that would be the thing.
Well, tell me more about how you're imagining that. You're saying you started talking about if it was someone you loved, the brushing the hair, what would you be wanting to, what's communication is important to you there in your imagination?
I suppose it's the meaning behind those things, and then the meaning is sort of on the way to communicating with somebody, isn't it? Is that you have a sort of you're trying to find a shared something in the middle, and so if this was my mother, I would want her to feel cared for and to know through me doing acts that I was telling her that I loved her, or and I think we see Ellie takes on a huge amount of the burden of the care out of love, I think.
I would also, just to interject there, from a story point of view, I think it's almost like Ellie has retracted and gone into, sorry, this is hard for me to explain, but where we get to at the very end of the film, in that last scene, is that Ellie has, if you like, is become less frozen, has been able to grieve what's happened, has allowed some emotion back into her life, and in that happening is almost being able to see Abigail again, because of removing herself from the family home and being able to remember her mother not in that state. I feel like she's being able to connect back with her. So when we are in the beginning of the film, I almost want to show Ellie in quite a cold state, that she can't, that perhaps she isn't doing those acts of love, that she has gone more into sort of a very functionary mode, because
sort of duty with that.
Yeah, does that make sense? Because I feel like there needs to be, because Abigail isn't going to change within the film, but Ellie does. So how do we show that difference? And we can't rely, we're not having this Hollywood ending where Abigail starts communicating with Ellie. So it's got to be about the way Ellie accepts this scenario and tries to find something with it, some comfort within it. And because she's never left the home from the moment the accidents happened, and she's become this carer role, the way I show Ellie interact with Abigail at the beginning of the film is quite, I feel like needs to be quite specific. And I've even changed some of the scenes and made them less her communicate or get less close to her, because I feel like, yeah, so I suppose it's about what are those acts that she does actually do with her, and how does she act with her, and is she less loving, maybe? I don't know. I just, yeah.
That's really interesting, because I hadn't realized that was maybe that's something that didn't quite work for me, that was implicit. And the reason why it's in the wrong direction. So every family, the first in the early years, it's very easy to be incredibly devoted and loving and connected and feel the connection with this version of your mum. And it's the other direction, that over time it begins to feel more fake, more artificial. You go in and try and express kind of love and caring and normalize it, and you come out choking on anger, rage, disappointment, despair. So the journey in every family I've worked with is in the other direction. And it's later on that you'll just be a bit perfunctory. Yeah, okay, I've got to care for this profoundly disabled person. I will do everything, but they are not my mother. My mother is who I remember. My mother has gone. And that changes their relationship. It changes their relationship even at the deathbed, like whether they even want to be at the deathbed. And hospices are really shocked if families just kind of come in and have a picnic at the end of the bed, don't talk to the dying person, and say, well, she's been vegetative for 10 years, no point. So there tends to be a move from feeling that the person does at least have the potential to come back as your mother and embodies everything that was your mother. And later on, actually more and more distancing from that version of your mother, even if you reconnect with your memories of your mother and what your mother wanted for you. So that's the journey over time. And it's really interesting. You present it in your narrative, it's in the other direction.
Well, I suppose because I've chosen not to show the 7 years almost from the accident to where we get to Ellie at 20, because it'd be interesting from a teenager's point of view, from a 13-year-old, when this happens, how she chooses to react is slightly different to maybe an adult. And I think that's probably why she's gone into this sort of slightly different mode, and how a teenager would react, dealing with all the emotions of becoming a teenager, of being, that big transitional stage into adulthood, and then having to become your mother's carer. So I wonder if that reversal that I've written in that way is plausible.
Yeah, no, I think when you remind me of that, I think yes. So we're coming in at 7 years on, and she's being maybe slightly just, this is what we have and this is what I'll deal with. And then she goes away, and then that's when she's able to go through a journey, and she can come back, and you want her to have changed then with how she relates with. Is that right?
Yes, I think it is. It's in the simplest form, I want her to be able to see her mother again, which when we come to her at 20 at the beginning of the film, she has stopped seeing that completely.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
But maybe that's not the right thing. I mean,
I was just going to say, George, it's her sort of
7 years in, she'd have stopped seeing that thing. That thing is her mother. She's an object of care. She's something you. So in terms of that, it does absolutely work with my experience with families about what's happening after 7 years, especially for a teenager. You're right. It was maybe that. Yeah. Sorry, I'll stop now.
No, I don't. I wonder whether I've actually put. Now I'm thinking about it more specifically. Maybe I actually need to bring more, less sort of affection. I don't know. And so that we can actually really see that difference.
Because there's a yearning there in the first half.
Emma, it's about to
yeah.
finish.
Leave and come back.
Yes, please.
Okay.
That's new thought. Okay.